With another exciting chapter of The Mandalorian comes another analysis video. Unlike the previous chapters, this one touches on the main theme of the series, the great mystery of little Baby Yoda, which makes it one of the most interesting episodes of The Mandalorian so far. So let's take a look at what happened in Season 2, Episode 4, and see what great revelations were discovered. Before we begin today's video, we would like to announce the winner of our giveaway of the Darth Vader Black Series FX lightsaber and the Neo and Agent Smith sunglasses replicas. Bright Light. Congratulations! Be sure to send us an email with your information so we can send out your prize. Thanks to everyone who participated, and enjoy today's video. Let us quickly go through what happened in this episode and get to the important part. The Mandalorian was heading to the planet of Corvus in search of Ahsoka Tano, but his ship was still damaged. After a failed attempt to give the ship some maintenance, partially thanks to Baby Yoda, Mando determined that they would not be able to reach their destination. So he decides to make a stop in Navarro to repair his ship. There he is reunited with his friends Greef Karga and Cara Dune, who was now the marshal of the town. Since the repairs on the Razor Crest were going to take a while, Mando leaves Baby Yoda in a newly formed school for children. Now with some free time to spare, Greef asks Mando for help. It turns out that there is an old Imperial base at the outskirts of town that has not yet been abandoned by the Empire. Greef believes that Navarro wasn't going to be completely safe if the base isn't destroyed, and Mando agrees to help. With the assistance of Mithro, Mando's bounty in Season 1 Episode 1, they managed to infiltrate the base. The plan was to destroy the main reactor that generated energy from the lava stream that ran underground. Watching the infiltration of an Imperial base built inside a mountain and the mission to reach the control panel to destroy the base is reminiscent of the missions from the video games Dark Forces and Jedi Knight. Perhaps the familiarity is not a coincidence. After successfully sabotaging the reactor, the team makes their getaway, and this is where the first big surprise of the episode happens. Two Imperial scientists, we know this because of the way they were dressed, similar to Pershing in the first season, are frantically trying to delete all data from the station's computers. But when Mando's group approaches, the Imperials resort to just blasting the computers. We see how important it was for the Empire to keep whatever they were doing in that base a secret, because even after one of the Imperials was killed, the other keeps firing at the console in a frenzy attempt to destroy it. With both scientists now dead, Mando and the others enter the room and make a horrifying discovery. In front of the scientist's station, there were multiple capsules. They were filled with a strange liquid and one unidentifiable biological creature inside each. They were deformed, no doubt due to the experiments done on them. Theories quickly began to run through our minds. We are beginning to see the connections between Baby Yoda and the Empire's experiments. The creatures inside the capsules immediately lead us to think of Snoke. Could this be confirmation that Baby Yoda was being used to create a better host for Darth Sidious? Cara realizes that this was not an Imperial military facility, but a laboratory. They needed more information. Mithro accessed the recording from the damaged computers. It was a message from Dr. Pershing.
Replicated the results of the subsequent trials, which also resulted in catastrophic failure. There were promising effects for an entire fortnight, but then, sadly, the body rejected the blood.
There is no doubt that the M stands for metachlorian. The doctor continues.
I recommend that we suspend all experimentation. I fear that the volunteer will meet the same regrettable fate if we proceed with the transfusion. Unfortunately, we have exhausted our initial supply of blood. The child is small and I was only able to harvest a limited amount without killing him. If these experiments are to continue as requested, we would again require access to the donor. I will not disappoint you again, Moff Gideon.
We finally have an answer for why the Empire wanted Baby Yoda. They needed his blood for his high metachlorian count to inject it into other subjects. The Force emanates from all living beings. Therefore, the result of a high metachlorian count blood transfusion to a being with a low or no metachlorian count could result in the deformities that we saw in those creatures inside the capsules. So the Empire wants to create a Force-sensitive being artificially. Interesting. But what is their endgame with these experiments? While as we've already mentioned multiple times on this channel, Sidious is the one who wants Baby Yoda to use him in his experiments, and this may be confirmation because the possibility here is that Sidious wants Baby Yoda to create a being powerful with the Force so that he can transfer his essence into it. Palpatine created Snoke, but Snoke wasn't perfect. He needed something better. He needed Baby Yoda, and now we know why. There is still the possibility that they are going to clone Baby Yoda. In fact, that would be the most obvious thing to do. They have already taken the genetic material from the baby after all. But this was not the only surprise of the episode. The episode's finale gave us an even bigger revelation. An Imperial soldier goes to give Moff Gideon some information. Gideon was located in a bay surrounded by an army of black figures, all of them being examined by technicians. The first thing that springs to mind is that this is an army of soldiers that have been infused with the Force thanks to the experiments with Baby Yoda's blood. But if you look closely and carefully, you will see that these are drones. The robotic hands give them away, which brings us to a possible realization. Are these the legendary Dark Troopers? Earlier in the video, we mentioned how this episode reminds us of the Jedi Knight video games. In the game, a group of Force-infused stormtroopers called Shadow Troopers appeared. Now we know that the Empire is conducting these experiments, and more importantly, the Dark Troopers appeared for the first time in those video games. The robotic stormtroopers who became infamous thanks to these games are now going to be a part of the Mandalorian, or at the very least, these new troopers of the series were inspired by them, taking ideas and themes from the games and using them in the Mandalorian, turning Mando into a somewhat Kyle Katarn archetype. After all, Dave Filoni already brought some Dark Trooper-inspired drones to Rebels. So it is possible that he would bring another version of these troopers to the Mandalorian, even more so since the Dark Troopers already exist in the canon. So far, we only have the Dark Troopers Phase 2. The similarities to those that appear at the end of the episode could mean that they are the same, with some modifications for live-action adaptation. Or maybe they are an entirely different phase. We just have to wait and see. Are we going to see these troopers facing off against Mando? Without a doubt. Besides, Mando and the child are now being tracked by the Empire. But what about you? What did you think about Season 4, Episode 2 of The Mandalorian? What experiments is the Empire conducting with Baby Yoda's blood? And are those droids the Dark Troopers? And please don't forget, subscribe to our new channel, Mandalorian Universe.